with us? I don't think we have. No. Okay, so we don't have a public session. Okay. Right, any apologies? No. Any declarations?
Yes.
Robin?
Yeah, I'd like to declare at the meeting for the record that I also will be sitting on 2 other planning committees and may act accordingly throughout the meeting. I think that covers us for the declarations. I also should declare if anything comes up relation to, there's nothing on the agenda, but so it's a standing thing that I also sit on the fire authority. So if there's anything to do with that, I must declare it.
Yeah, you've told us that. That's fine. Thank you.
But unless we can just do a standard one for that to save me keep saying it.
Yeah, I think it's already been noted.
You know.
Yeah. And there's nothing on the agenda. You're right. So that's fine. Thank you, though. Okay, so minutes, we'll skip over that because we're not doing them tonight. Item 4, Buckinghamshire Council matters. Has everybody read the attachment? And if anybody wishes to say anything, please put your hand up. Okay, I've got Mark, I've got Paul, and that's it. So Mark and Paul.
Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Age before beauty.
Right.
Councillor Cole.
You want me to go?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I'm looking at the parish and town council's involvement in planning applications. A couple of things really jump out on this. One of them is on page 4, where it says, how do the new regulations apply to parish and town council comments submitted before 1st of April 2020? It says this means in areas where the parish council comments may have meant there was an automatic referral, this no longer applies. And this includes Aylesbury Vale area where the parish town council made comments which are contrary to the officer recommendations. So they've singled out Aylesbury Vale as being the only district that was going through this due process of having a planning clerk, having a planning committee which could make decisions to object and attend. This has all been wiped out at a stroke without any consultation with us. What is very, very telling is that this draft, the parish and town council involvement, the first draft was made on the 13th of May. It was then approved on the 20th of May. So there was a 7-day consultation. So anyone who said this was already in the offing back in April is not telling the truth. The first draft was the 13th of May. It was rushed through in an unseemly haste. I'm aware that we've already written to Warren about this, but I think it should be stressed that, in my opinion, they tried to shoot this through when no one was looking. And I find this a real, you know, goes against everything we've been involved in, and it's not following due process.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Paul?
Well, Mark's covered the point that I wanted to cover anyway, so I found it was so quickly that they moved from that to sort of wiping us out. I don't understand why. You'd have thought there would have been a little bit more consultation in their own business, in their own procedures, really. Because one, where they were definitely going to us, saying, yes, you've got this, and then suddenly they've wiped it out.
Yeah. Well, before I take you, Robin, the slides that I sent around earlier from their, what is it, the January 20th in our agenda pack, where they say they want to work with towns and parishes and have involvement, and then come to this document that, as Mark has said, has been rushed through, goes completely against what they originally said. So it's really disappointing. Robin, would you like to say something?
Yeah, firstly, as soon as I knew about this, I, as you will know, called it to committee, to the cabinet, and raised questions on it.
Yeah.
Before that, I was in correspondence with the legal and governance team over this. What doesn't make sense is the explanation given about the constitution, the information that Councillor Cole has, your deputy has produced, because they say that it was in the constitution, which was bounced through but never went to overview and scrutiny committee, which I sat on the shadow authority. They say that they consulted with all political groups. Well, they didn't consult with me, so that's technically incorrect, because they never consulted with all political groups. And if the people on the shadow authority were very limited. There was only 20 councillors doing scrutiny and 20 councillors running it, so they didn't stick it under my nose. The meeting that it went to, I said once before, there was only one question on the constitution raised, and that was by myself over the community boards being pretty undemocratic at the time. Now, I think they need to be sure of what they're actually saying, because Councillor Cole's exposed something tonight which was not given in a response to a question from myself. It was referring to the constitution. Now, this has been an almighty rush, and the argument I've seen today, I don't know whether Caroline has been privy to any correspondence. If she wants to refer to it, I think she can, is that they keep implying that there was only one district which wasn't in conformity with the policy which they've imposed. Well, that's rather a lot, because if you remember, when the two unitary cases put you forward, 50% of the population, or close to 50% of the population, were actually in the Vale. So it would suggest that the people who saw this didn't even know about the goings on in the district, or they cared little to the implementations of it. So I don't know where we go with it, apart from the fact that we must keep applying pressure to the cabinet member. I understand that he has made one response in the Bucks-Free Press last week, and he made a response to the cabinet. I'm not going to speak for the councillor, and to be fair to him, I don't think he knew about this, period. I think that he was doing children's services at the time, and when he walked into this position, he was given this problem, because I can't imagine that he wouldn't have raised a question about this for the life of me. So I think how we deal with him, hopefully we keep him on board, and he's going to fight our case, and they're going to amend the constitution. Without his support, what Martin has said, both in his response to me at cabinet and his response to correspondence I've seen, is that he's waiting for Warren to do and give his opinion on this. So I think we need to get Warren pretty much on board, because it appears the power rests with him to make this decision. And Martin referred to him at the cabinet meeting, saying if Councillor White wishes to see an amendment to it, I would support him in that. Now we must force that issue politely and get some understanding of this, because Warren must understand about planning on town council, because he was a previous planning chairman on our council, so he will know our procedures in and out.
Yeah, I don't think there's an argument that he doesn't understand. I think the fact that he replied to your question and said that he would look into it, I think that's quite a positive move. But you're right, I think we do need to see if there's some sort of time scale, perhaps, because all the while that, you know, we're kind of pushed out and given 3 minutes shared time, you know, it's taken away a little bit of our input that we've always had, and it's just a shame. Is there anybody else that wanted to say anything? John?
Unmute yourself, John.
Yeah, just give me a moment. I'm just unmuting myself now. I think that we have to decide how we proceed with this. I mean, obviously we've written now to Warren in a formal way, asking for this decision to be reviewed. I've been thinking about this lots in the last couple of days, and it strikes me that we've got to just simply carry on as if it was the same arrangement. and just note how it works out in practice, I think, because I think the rub will come when we come across an application that we are very concerned about, and we ask the Unitary Authority councillors to call it in, and perhaps maybe one or two do, but perhaps the chairman then decides not to put it on the agenda. And then at that point, I think we begin to kick up a little bit about it. I mean, if in practical terms, if it makes little difference, because always a UBC councillor will call in what we want to be called in, then I don't think we're not gonna get anywhere. It's when the issue arises that we can't get the applications that we want to be presented on the agenda and discussed. That's when we begin to suggest that the system is not working, I think. And we also wait to see what Warren says. I mean, certainly tomorrow night I've got a meeting of the AVALC executive, and it's on the agenda, of course, there. And I'm pretty sure that it will be a cross-party agreement, because obviously, you know, there are people there from all parties on the AVALC exec, and everyone will be, well, already indicated that they're very much against what's happening here, because effectively all parish and town councils with regards to planning have been neutered. And those who've got neighbourhood plans like we have, then we surely should always have a right to explain why a particular application is not conforming to what is our, and doesn't belong to the UBC, what is our neighbourhood plan. So I think we just got to see how this works out in practice, and then ramp it up in terms of our action and concern if something begins to go seriously wrong. Have we written to the MP as well, Town Clerk? Because I think we should. I think we should raise this with our MP, because this is a matter of local governance that's not working very well. And so I would propose we write a letter, or at least get hold of the copy that we sent to Warren and bring it to the attention of the MP and ask him for his views. It would be my proposal.
Yeah, I think that, has everybody agreed with that idea?
Yeah.
Can't imagine anybody wouldn't agree with that.
Yeah, agreed.
I mean, there was, oh, Martin, let's take you. Oh, sorry, Paul, Town Clerk, did you want to say something quick?
Yeah, all I was going to say was, apart from the fact that obviously we're waiting for Warren's reply, I'm aware as well that Carol at BALC has had meetings with, not with Warren, but with the relevant officer at county at Buckinghamshire Council today or tomorrow. So BALC have taken up the issue as well. So between BALC, AVALC and North Bucks Planning Consortium, obviously it is being addressed from all possible directions.
Fabulous, thank you. Martin?
Sorry, I lost focus on the Zoom meeting at that point. Yeah, no, I don't necessarily agree with Councillor Harvey in that we ought to wait, because I think if we get to a planning application that is of note and we really feel strongly about it, at that point it's too late, I believe. So I agree with Councillor Harvey's last remark, and he took the words out of my mouth, that we ought to write to our MP. The other parish and town councils in the Vale already know about it, so they're on board. But we ought to keep the pressure up before we get to that point of actually wanting to know how the outcome is going to turn out, because at that point it is too late to do anything about it.
Yeah, thank you. And I think that the response that Catherine got to the call-in letter email that she sent around, I think that, you know, that kind of really highlighted it straight away, where there was only two councillors out of the list that was willing to take it to a call-in, you know, and I just think the excuses for the others that didn't want to take it up was, you know, I just don't see that as a very good way of moving forward, or working a new way. Anthony?
Thank you. Nobody's mentioned the email that Margaret Gately sent round with that extract from the Town and Country Planning Act, where it appears, from how I read it, that parish councils are entitled to call in, and this is in the Act. So I'm not an expert on the town and country planning, but I wonder whether we ought to read through that at our leisure and see if we have a case anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, there's no harm in sending the same letter that our MP gets to the whoever's dealing with localism and housing in the Houses of Parliament. Oh, sorry, Anthony.
Yes, thank you. Just to respond to that, I just wondered if we could collectively look at it and form an opinion on that section of the Town and Country Planning Act, whether we could then use that in any letters to anybody as the basis, a legal basis of why we want to have the situation put back where it was before, because it does appear to be, well, to my eye, seems to be fairly clear.
Right, I'll take 10 o'clock first.
Just on that, my reading of that is that it says a town parish council must have the opportunity to make representation. So I assume they would take our writing to them as a representation. And it is common practice in other counties to do what the council are now proposing to do. I'd be surprised if there is another way of reading it, but I will go back and double check that and report that back if I'm wrong.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Right, John.
I think that's a question that we can legitimately ask our MP, because he will have access to advice from the relevant Whitehall department on that matter. But I think the town clerk is correct. I think putting things in writing would be regarded as representation. I did have a quick look through the stuff that Margaret circulated, and I tend to agree. But it's worth asking the question. It's worth that's a good way to engage our MP, because it is national legislation and that is his job. Yeah,
definitely. Catherine, can I just ask you? You sent an email that was forwarded from Robin earlier. Do you want to say something about what Robin sent you?
Well, why not let Robin say what Robin sent me?
Yeah,
I just thought it'd be quicker if you did it.
Almost certainly.
Yes, I agree with that.
well, I won't tell you what it says then you won't know. But if you want to engage on that sort of basis, we can do that. And that'll be how you will get engaged. No, seriously, I mean, that's very nice that you mock me, but that's good fun for you. But I'll take it as jest. But seriously, that I was sent today 3 applications which are possibly go to committee. I have corresponded on one of them tonight, which is Osiers Way.
Okay.
To say that I wanted that to go to committee, and I was going to consider the other 2, but hoping that it would give other councillors a chance to take one of them up. Now, of course, I didn't want to take all 3 up because it would look like overkill, but as Osier Way was so prejudicial to the town plan, I notified them today that I will be calling that in. Now, I have to work with Catherine, obviously, on what the conditions for calling that in are, because I can't remember for the life of me so long ago.
Yeah.
But there was also the concern in it, and maybe Catherine can speak on that. I think she should, that it it wasn't all the applications that we know. And I think Catherine should talk on that, not me.
Yeah, that's why I asked her. But all right, thank you, Robin. Let's see, Catherine, do you want to say anything, or really don't?
No, what it appears to be is Osier Way, Station House, where they wanted to put those 11 houses on the site, and Hamilton Precision, where they wanted a variation of condition. It looks to me as though Mrs. Kitchen is assembling the agenda for strategic sites, not the North Bucks Planning Committee, because I had my 2. I mark mine, which ones I think will go to strategic, and 2 of them did. I didn't put Station House in because it is only 11 and they have a sort of like a boundary limit. But I think that's what she's doing. We have got pre-April, we have got 17 oppose and attends. And what they're doing is saying that no longer, the and attend bit is no longer valid. So they've got to be called in. And if the 3 that are there are in Robin's ward. There aren't any in the north that she's included. So either our shire councillors, for the simplicity of it, if our shire councillors for the other wards have not communicated with us, then that's going to be a problem, isn't it?
Yeah. And the fact that they've only given him 7 days. So now, you know, Robin, if he wants to call all 3 of them in, has got 7 days in which to do so, to get, you know, real planning reasons for calling them in. So
to be perfectly honest, our responses were all planning reasons. And
yeah,
they need a little bit of titivating up, because I will put actually the clauses of the neighbourhood plan and that kind of thing in, because I don't think I actually put them in as such, because the officer we were dealing with was pretty conversant with it, but we don't know who's going to be dealing with it now, especially if we have to go to this business manager person for a final decision. So I'll work them up and send them to Robin, but basically it's what we said.
Okay.
Because we don't shilly-shally about with non-planning reasons.
All right, thanks for that. Mark?
Chairman, I'm not clear what we're talking about. I haven't seen any emails from Robin or Catherine. Is it something that we've been sent? I'm looking now on the council website.
No, Robin sent it. It was very late this afternoon. So
I thought everybody got it. I'm so sorry.
There's nothing on my Vision ICT. I'm looking at it now.
I apologise.
No, mine, I've got nothing.
The last one I had was 2 applications just before 7 o'clock from Catherine, which are both tree applications. That's the last thing I've had.
I apologise, Mark.
Sorry.
What I should need to do, think if it's before a planning meeting in the future, is to email you all. I apologise about that. It's not Catherine's fault. That's my fault.
No.
I will be honest with you. I'm happy to do the Hamilton petition one, but I'm not sure what the grounds are. But I'm very uneasy to go near Station Road one, because I've not only been confronted and questioned in public on 3 occasions.
No, Robin, Station House.
Station House, yeah.
That's right up by the 2 Tindrick Road applications.
I don't think that would go well for anyone if I dealt with that.
Does anybody, Catherine, Robin, is it right if I forward this email on to everybody quickly?
Please.
Yeah, but with respect, Madam Chairman, this isn't on the agenda, and we need to discuss this at great detail. This is really important, especially Osier Way.
Yeah, no, the reason that I raised it is because it came under item 4. Catherine suggested that I mention about this, but I didn't realise that nobody else got the email. So sorry about that.
Got the email this afternoon, Mark.
Because we're not going to be having another meeting in this time, are we?
Well, if Robin's only got 7 days to produce his thing, then it's got to be done.
Madam Chairman, if I could just explain, that was only one of the emails that I had today with the outstanding applications. There was a second list for the old Buckingham North Ward, which was much longer and asking the same questions. From what you've been saying, I assume that nobody else has received that. So if you like, I can send it on to you. But
yes, please.
That list of 3 is very much the shorter one of the 2. If you hold on for a moment, I can let you know what the other applications are.
I'm just going to, while you do that, I'm going to forward this one.
Okay, I've got them here. It's the garage site at Oven Crescent, 12 to 13 Market Hill, the workshop Tingswick Road, 7 Crone Close, Castle Milk Buckingham, and 23 to 23B Morton Road.
Right.
So I think there's about 7 there. Has no one else actually received these?
No.
No.
Which is quite bad, considering we're a planning committee for a town council. I think it's quite bad. Can I just take quickly Martin and then John? So they've had their hands up for a little while.
Thanks. Just on a process point of view, with the unitary planning decision process, they did say that they didn't want or they didn't necessarily need any planning reasons or quotations, just the reasons why we didn't want it. But from what Catherine was saying a moment ago, is that, you know, quite rightly, we will put our twist on it and our planning reasons that we think we don't want particular items. But it made me think about how would the Unitary Council know about our neighbourhood plan and the reasons that we want to extract from that against the planning application. Over and out.
Catherine, do you want to answer that one, or Paul?
Well, I think with Osier Way, it was pretty well all against, because it's not a site in the British, in the Buckingham neighbourhood plan. It's, you know, it's not allocated land. So that's what I mean. If I actually go through and put in the policy numbers, even if we get a new planner, they're going to have it hit between the eyes. But
yeah.
But that's our view, Catherine. But how would they know that if we didn't tell them that?
Well, that's the point. I am going to make sure that they are told that. I mean, I haven't even had time since Robin sent me that email to actually look at what we actually said. But it can quite easily, I mean, as long as it follows what's on the website so that Mrs. Kitchen can see that we're not inventing new stuff. I think clarification is how I would put it.
I mean, we could always send them our neighbourhood plan and then they'll have a copy of it.
Well, they should have it, and some of the officers do. Yes, but the fact remains is that the neighbourhood plan is the legal document.
Yeah,
you have got to go with the neighbourhood plan because there is no alternative.
Yeah.
So if I spell it out in words of one syllable.
All right, John, did you want to come in with something?
Yeah, I'm just saying I am completely and utterly confused what we're talking about at this point in time. I'm always an avid and loyal supporter of Catherine, and I trust her 100% to represent what we've said in the past, which is often what she told us to say anyway, but there you go. But I do 100% support Catherine responding to these inquiries from the Shire Council regarding these planning matters. But Mark is absolutely right. We should not be discussing things on this agenda that are not on the agenda. And if the Unitary Council are not giving us adequate time to respond to this, then that's their fault, and we need to tell them it's their fault. They've got to give us adequate notice to actually deal with this. They can't just dump it on our laps at very short notice.
No, so, this isn't for us to comment on. This is an email that Robin received for him to comment on as the county council, as the councillor, the Shire councillor.
Well, with respect, why are we discussing it then, Chair? It's
I was bringing it. No, I was bringing it to your attention. Robin, hold on.
No, it's not on the agenda. It should not be subject to discussion.
I was bringing it to people's attention under item 4.
Can we let the town clerk?
You can't do that, the Chair.
Can the town clerk say what he wants to?
Oh, sorry, I didn't see your hand up there, Paul. I had the other screen on.
Right, it looks like I'm scratching my beard half the time. That's the problem. Yeah, just to say what I think's going on is that because we're under item 4, it's an email that's gone to Buckinghamshire councillors asking them or giving them the opportunity to call in things this committee's already decided to oppose and attend, but now we're not allowed to attend. So it's definitely a legitimate item to discuss under item 4 because it's what seems to have happened is Buckinghamshire councillors have suddenly been given a great big long list of things to respond to in just 7 days to do it. And that raises a concern. Now, in a way, that's a concern for Buckinghamshire councillors, not for us. but it does add to the sense that actually we've asked to oppose and attend things. We can only do it with their permission. And now councillors have got 7 days to cram the detail on a whole big set of applications. And Buckinghamshire councillors have to be confident in the planning reasons for them to call something in. So it's a pretty big ask on them, I would have thought, to go through the detail and stuff where we've had several weeks and a report from Catherine, a long discussion to come to those decisions. So I'm not sure whether it's something we'd want to represent on directly or not, but it does add into the overall discussion.
Yeah, thank you, Paul. Did I see any other hands up? Robin?
Well, just to say, are you happy for the two which I think I'm capable of dealing with for legal reasons? Are you happy that I work with Catherine on your behalf on those? Because I don't know the reason that the town council called them in, and I can't invent my own reasons. They will probably ruin any opportunity on both those applications. And so I think it's wise that I represent, because I've said in my correspondence back to them, my words were, I'm calling them in because the Osier Way one, because it's contrary to the neighbourhood plan.
Yeah.
And that was my primary reason for saying I'd call it in. I haven't got time to write a reason. And I felt duty bound to, that we were meeting tonight, to make Catherine aware of it. And it would have been irresponsible of me to try and mention it at the meeting without at least circulating the correspondence. But my apologies to Mark, as I said earlier. I think if that happens again, he's made a good point. I should send it to all of you.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you, Robin.
Just say, from an office point of view, I think we'll always be happy for Buckinghamshire councillors to ask Catherine for information or reports about decisions this committee has made, to clarify the reasons behind decisions this committee has made. So if any councillor wants that, Catherine's always available to clarify matters.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. Mark?
Yeah, if this is going, thank you. I've received the email from you now, Lisa.
Okay.
I see it's gone to everyone. If this is called in, 420 houses at Osier Way, and the corporate director of planning decides in his wisdom with the planning officer that they'll just delegate it, where do we fit in? We're supposed to have our chance to appear and speak for 3 minutes now, not 5 minutes. Paul, how does that fit in?
Well, if that officer decides that it's not appropriate for calling, then we don't have that opportunity. So they'll only have our written submission. But I'm sure if they were here, they would argue in a case like that, that's unlikely it would happen. So they would be arguing, actually, the proof of this is going to be in the meeting, isn't it?
So we've only got, as you say, we're talking about the 11th of June, that Susan Kitchen's trying to put this package together for us. Just looking, yeah, 11th of June, the Strategic Sites Committee. One of us is going to have to be briefed to go down there that day. We're talking about, what, 10 days away?
Yep. Let's check, nobody else's hand is up. Right, has anybody got anything else they want to say under this item? No. Okay, thank you. Right, so item 5, neighbourhood plan update. Paul?
Very little's happened in the last 2 weeks since you heard from Sheena.
Thank you. Has anybody got anything up, Mark?
Thank you, yes. The Constitution states quite clearly under corporate director or director's responsibility for planning, under item 218, paragraph A, Nina, the corporate director may determine all applications, grant permissions, etc., 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 with everything connected with planning obligations, agreements, processes, and determine all decisions relating to neighbourhood plans and strategic planning functions. That means our neighbourhood plan we might as well forget doing now, because it's been given to the corporate director to do. That's how it reads. So why are we even going to bother with it? We have a Buckingham neighbourhood plan at the moment, which is going to be the overarching plan probably for another year yet, because there is no chance that the VALP is going to be approved in the next year, not with the Salden Chase business going on, not with the Wickham business with Slough going on. So at least we've got our neighbourhood plan for the moment. But is there any point in us trying to make a new neighbourhood plan when the corporate director has been given the right to determine all decisions relating to neighbourhood planning?
Paul?
Not going to defend what the Constitution says. I mean, I think that's it seems to me as a technical thing rather than something to expect them to do, but.
Page 193, Paul, just for your information.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's something that we've got to look into. Anthony?
Based on what Councillor Cole has just said, does that mean that the corporate director actually will have a team to create local plans, because there has to be local plans? Otherwise, we could do all the work and then they could just pick it to bits.
Yeah. Robin, did you have your hand up?
Yeah, I did. This clearly, Mark raises something that needs to be a written question to get a proper answer from it.
Yeah.
I think if I can have the information, I've got the Constitution here, but I think phrasing the question is going to be the crucial thing to get the answer we want out of it. Furthermore, when the Cabinet Minutes are published, there's an answer regarding the district's historical plan and an answer regarding other matters. So that being the expressway and the views of the council. They're very much undetermined, but I do think we need to get this question in now, because the only way we're going to win on this is by continuously discussing it in the public domain. If we don't, and this is another opportunity to go back with a further question.
Yeah.
Mark, I mean, I apologise, I've not spotted that. I've got the Constitution here, but well done, Mark. You know, I think if Mark wants to work with Catherine to write that question, I need to send it in pretty sharpish, and I'll put that in as a written question to Cabinet, because at least we'll get a written answer in the minutes of which you can read, of which we can then, this is going to be an ongoing discussion, isn't it? And we need to keep the pressure on. This is a legitimate way of applying a bit more pressure.
Yeah.
And the other matters will be in the minutes of the Cabinet meeting when they're published.
Yeah. Are members happy that we go that route, do a written question?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Sensible to me.
Martin? Oh, you thumbs up. Right. Item 6, the Solden Chase. Councillor Cole, do you mind taking over as chair for a minute? Because I need to visit the little girl's room.
Fine. Thank you. Everyone happy with that?
Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you. Yeah. Lisa and I, in fact, we went online for the Newton Longville Parish Council meeting, which was 2 Fridays ago. It's about the 1,855 houses at Solden Chase, which is between Bottle Dump and Newton Longville. I hope you've all read the report. What jumps out in this report is the fact that the Vale of Elsley plan is now in total disarray. It took, I didn't realise this before, it actually took AVDC 275 weeks sitting on that plan and not even determining it by the time it became Buckinghamshire Council, despite the 16-week government target for environmental impact assessments. The appellants, of course, jumped on that. That's why the 5 of them together, South West Milton Keynes Consortium, have appealed. They very cynically left it till the last day of the permitted 6 months. And what they've done, they put in a totally new traffic plan in the appeal. So it bears no relationship whatsoever to the original traffic management plan on the original application. And it's actually reduced the traffic by 35% since 2015, which you'll all realise is nonsense, up until the point, of course, that the COVID-19 pandemic kept in. But there's going to be at least a 16-week consultation period before this public inquiry. Then there'll be a public inquiry process. And apparently there's a huge backlog, and best assessment at the moment is that they wouldn't be able to determine this appeal until probably 20 2021, which means VALP cannot be made until this has been sorted out. This is the situation we're in. Newton Longville Parish, together with West Bletchley Parish Council, they're putting £10,000 each into the Fighting Fund to employ a planning solicitor and a highways expert to put together their point to put to the appeal. They've also asking everyone else, North Bucks Parishes Planning Consortium, of which of course Paul is chairman, Buckingham, Winslow and all affected parishes to support the appeal, not financially, but just to be there for them and, you know, put our weight behind. They've also asking Councillor Warren White, who's head of strategic planning, what Buckinghamshire Council's position is on this application, because at the moment they haven't decided one way or the other if they're going to agree it.
Thanks for that, Mark. Does anybody have any comments on that? Robin?
Just to say, Mark, it might be a gentlemanly thing to write to them and ask them that it might be something they wish to get their local member to raise as a written question to get some clarity in the minutes. It could be that they know nothing about it or they won't do that. But I think at the moment they're not going to meet. The council isn't going to meet till September. There's not going to be a council meeting of the unitary council till September. So most councillors won't get an opportunity to raise these things unless they use the cabinet meetings, it won't be a legitimate topic for a planning meeting for the same reasons John was saying isn't on the agenda. So I think we write to them and ask them would they consider that. It would be inappropriate for me to do it because I would just be, you know, it looked like I was hunting for something. Not that I don't ever hunt for things, but I don't think I should do that.
If I could just respond, yeah, the member for Newton Longville is Scott Raven. He's from North Marston. He wears a bandana, funnily enough, at these meetings.
Yeah, and a red one.
Obviously got a role. You're his role model there, Robin. No, so Scott Raven is the man. Is it up to us to suggest that, or is it up to Newton Longville Parish Council to suggest that? I don't know.
Martin?
He's gone.
Right, sorry.
Okay.
Yeah, so this is outside of our jurisdiction, but within the Vale. Are we putting anything together to say why we don't like it or object to it for, you know, traffic, education? Not that we have control over these, but they will impact on our community and maybe some of the facilities that we provide. Maybe we do like it for maybe job opportunities, etc. Well, like it in some ways, maybe it could be an opportunity. And Mark or Lisa, is it self-contained? Does it have schools, medical facilities, etc., within it?
Catherine?
We have already responded to this application. Yes, there is a secondary school and there are primary schools, but they will be within the Vale, which means that they can do the 11+, which will put load on the Latin or the Aylesbury schools. We also argued that the additional traffic along the A421 would undoubtedly affect our bypass. We also made the suggestion that as the southern boundary of the site is going to be the east-west rail link, that Network Rail might want to put a station there and keep the traffic down that way. And Network Rail looked at us as though we were completely balmy. If you've got a population of some 5,000 people, there's bound to be people who want to go into Bletchley and get the train to London without having to park. And the road along by the golf course there is not a brilliant road going to Bletchley Station. But yes, we have already responded on the points that we felt mattered to us. We left Newton Longville and West Bletchley to comment on the things that matter to them. But Milton Keynes are going to end up providing medical facilities and that sort of thing. Transport, they're going to have to extend the Milton Keynes bus routes to go through it. You know, they've got their own problems.
Yeah. And Mark, you wanted to come back?
Yeah, just answering what Martin asked. Yeah, the main thrust of this is it's in Aylesbury Vale, as Catherine says, but the cross-boundary, environmental issues, road access points all impact on Milton Keynes, which is why they become a stakeholder. Milton Keynes Council was actually recommended to accept it by its officers, but they overruled their officers, which is why it's gone to appeal, which is really interesting. But yes, as Martin asked, A421 is going to be the main problem. And interestingly, they made the point during the meeting that the developer assumes that Milton Keynes Central is where all the London-bound commuters want to go. They don't. If you go to Bletchley, a season ticket is £800 a year cheaper. That's why they go there.
Yeah. Right. Anybody else?
Yeah,
oh,
Madam Chairman, just a small point about what Robin was saying. There is another full council meeting, I think, on the 15th of July.
Okay, thank you. Carolyn.
I was just going to mention this appeal, because presumably there is also going to be another appeal on the main modifications of VALP for the northeast Aylesbury Vale site, which is basically Wadden and Shenley. I think they're calling it Shenley Park. Just to clarify that those are two completely different, separate matters that are both subject to appeal. So the VALP looks light years away, frankly.
Thank you. Right, anybody else? No? Okay. Right, so we are on action reports. Has anybody got anything on the action list? Mark?
Yeah, I was going to ask, if I could, through you, Madam Chairman, ask Paul, have you been able to get any further with seeing if the North End and Verney Close surgeries could be designated community assets, and any further with setting up a meeting with Swan Practice?
So the Swan Practice, that's for the Environment Committee to discuss. That's now within their remit. I inquired of the new council what their process is for registering an asset of community interest. The response I've got was they're just working it out. Can I have a couple of weeks while they kind of compile their previous 5 processes into once, and then they use this as their test to prove the system works. So once they get back to me, I agreed a couple of weeks delay on that while they work out the right process, so I put in the right form.
Thank you.
Thank you. John?
Yeah, my question relates to the archaeology report on the West End Farm care home. Can we ask again about that? It seems to have gone on for blooming months. Yeah. If the report's been produced, why on earth can't we see a copy of it?
Robin has been emailing. I don't know, Robin, did you want to say this bit?
Just briefly on that question, John. The report is not available, and I was quoted because of COVID virus. No one stopped working on it, and it hasn't been produced. The officer has assured me that I will get it the moment it's produced. Clearly, I can't berate the officer because she's not writing the report, so she's very much a victim in this.
But you have asked twice. You have emailed twice.
And on the health thing, we couldn't. The Health and Scrutiny Committee meets on Thursday, so there's nothing on the agenda for the Health and Scrutiny Committee regarding our thing, and we couldn't foresee that. But I think we need to position ourselves for the next Health and Scrutiny Committee. And anyone from this council can, if you've got a question for the Health and Scrutiny Committee on these things, can attend that meeting and speak in the public. That's what used to happen on House. I'd have to check Well, they've done away with that right as well. But historically, I used to go along quite often and challenge them on things while district councillor. So, and was treated as a member of the public. So I think we should look into that. And if we get to with the COVID virus, and I think there will be another meeting of that, I believe, in September. So I think that we may be in a position where we can ask to have it on the agenda with a written question, and then go and ask the question of the House what they're doing about it, because they have the legal responsibility on this, and they are a statutory constituency, and we should use that committee to ask our questions if we're not happy, if we're not getting a public meeting. That's one way around it.
Good idea. Yeah,
I know one member on it, but I imagine other people know others. But I don't think that stops anyone in this council doing it.
All right. Well, like John said, does that answer your question?
That's fine. I just think if we can apply a bit more pressure as well, it wouldn't do any harm.
Yeah, no, Robin has been on the case for it.
Okay.
Is there anybody else on the action list? Carolyn?
I don't think I saw it on the action list, but I'm sure someone did. It might have been Anthony. The paving, unsatisfactory paving in front of Fleet Yard, which isn't paving, it's just sort of tarmac lump. And someone has, I think, reported it, but it wasn't on the action list. And I just wanted to bring it to everyone's attention, but it certainly does need doing. Oh,
I think that comes under enforcement or reporting. Catherine?
The TFB Streetworks gentleman, he's got to the point of going and investigating it every 17 days, I think he said, and he charges Anglian Water 50 quid every time he does it to go and inspect it. And he's hoping that they might just occur to them that it would be cheaper just to do it properly.
Oh, brilliant.
And that's as of this morning.
Nice one. Thank you. Did you have anything else, Carolyn?
No, that was it. Thank you.
Okay, so Andy and then Robin.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. The item where cars parked permanently on Burley Peace, that bus which was parked there has now been repaired and has moved away. Although he may come back occasionally, but it's now moving and repaired.
All right, so we can take that off.
That out.
Yeah, we can do that. Thank you, Andy.
Okay.
Robin?
Briefly, still section 106. There is a partial answer to that will be in the minutes of the cabinet meeting, but I'm not sure whether that is actually the same questions Catherine was going to ask.
It was Paul, I think.
Yeah, no, that's me. And just to add on that, I did repeat that question in the planning letter that went to Warren with all the other things we've spoken about. So he's now got that clearly for him in his new role.
Okay. Apologise. Just that.
That's okay. Right, is there anybody else on action list? No. No. Okay, moving on. Right, so I've got to scroll back up the screen. Right. Okay. So we're on 7.2, receive and discuss any response to the letter agreed last meeting. What letter was that?
That's the one we keep talking about that we sent to Warren.
Oh, okay.
So he has acknowledged it, but he said he will reply in a few days.
Yeah, you have only recently sent it, so that's fair enough. Right, 7.3, receive for information a map of the North Bucks planning areas. Does anybody have anything to say on that?
Yes, I do.
Oh, who's got the hand up?
Me.
John?
Yeah. My response is, what the heck? I mean, seriously, how on earth is Watermead and arguably Wingrave, and therefore by implication Pitstone and Edlesborough, in the north? I mean, that's just bonkers. And what's this line they've drawn through the middle of a division of Grendon Underwood and Brill? Either it's in the north or it's not. I mean, it's just bonkers. I mean, who on earth dreamt up of having Watermead in the north? when it's obviously a suburb of Aylesbury. And arguably, so is Wingrave. A lot of the planning issues in Wingrave all relate to Aylesbury expansion.
Yeah.
Now, Pittston and Edinburgh may be, because they're sort of similarly rural to what we're like, but what the heck? It's fucking nonsense with that. Who the heck drew that line? Can we just write to the UBC and ask them who drew the line? Honestly, I'd like to know who actually drew the line.
Oh, maybe one of our Shire councillors can ask that question.
Yeah,
Also,
Tim, go ahead.
have I made up a new term? Have I coined Shire councillors now? Because everybody seems to be using it. Right.
I think we're more of a unitary councillor, Lisa.
I'm more of a Shire horse, Tim.
Yeah, you're a Shire. You're definitely a Shire. Right. I can't see anybody because I've got the map up. So if anybody wants to speak, could you just call your name?
Can I just make a comment that whilst I wouldn't disagree with anything John said, from Buckingham's point of view, we've got a committee that's dealing with Buckingham things which will be meeting in Buckingham. But it's not something I'd want to raise any flags of concern about on behalf of parishes who it will impact who are quite some way away.
Good point.
I agree with that, obviously. And it's not an issue. I'm just thinking, I'm feeling a bit sad and upset on Watermead's behalf, because they must be thinking, so if they want to do an application or visit one, they've got to drive all the way to Buckingham rather than just more or less walk down the road to Aylesbury. What's that about?
Well, it's obvious, isn't it? It's
right,
obvious.
Paul and then Robin.
It's the north. It's equal population, north and south. That's how they've done it.
Yes, bloody accountants for you.
Yeah, well, that's basically it. But where else would you draw the line?
Robin.
I feel sorry for them. One thing it does reflect is round county boundaries, but one of the things it doesn't quite match is the list of councillors of representation for Buckingham areas, because Great Orwood, and I think it's Angela McPherson's area. She's chopped straight out of it, but I think she appears on the list of councillors in our area. So the two things don't jig together, and I wouldn't want to personalise an issue, but it looks to me like they had to draw a line somewhere, and Watermead got it.
Can I just say as well that these are just AVDC wards. They're not the divisions, now called wards, of the new council. Why aren't they using those? Because surely the new council, as we know, is at least for the next election, is going to be based around the old county council divisions, as they were called, and these aren't even they. So why aren't they using the county divisions as the basis for this? Because they've organised all the councillors in some magical way, it has to be said, but they have organised all the councillors of the new unitary authority around the old county divisions. Why are we seeing a map which even these lines have now disappeared? They don't even exist anymore, and they bear no resemblance to the current reality at all. I do think it's worth a letter to the UBC asking them exactly how this came about and why they're not using the new boundaries that are the basis of governance in the new unitary authority.
I'm wondering whether Tim or Charlie, now that he's joined us, do you have any input on why this line is where it is?
I don't know. It's we're just presented with them more or less as a fait accompli.
Right.
I can have a stab at it, I guess. Sorry, I haven't got my camera on, but it's Charlie. Hang on. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
So, of course, this may have been done in preparation for the unitary council properly formed, and it would have been done by the AVC planning team before they moved into the unitary culture. So I think it's just a sort of a cultural lag that they're still using at that point AVDC boundaries, where we are now, of course, as a unit, a unitary with the new divisions. So I suspect that's why it's happened, but I'm not defending it.
Thank you. Right, Martin.
As it doesn't really affect us, can we not just draw a line under it and move on?
Agreed.
Yes, agreed.
Like it. All right.
It will affect us. So we'll get angry Watermead councillors coming up to the planning meeting and say, "Will it affect us?"
Yeah.
Might improve the bus service. Can I just say that this was an item which came up in the Shadow Authority, didn't go to scrutiny, but went to one of those, something they were reviewing in cabinet papers on the Shadow Authority. It didn't say where it was, only that there was a workplace in place doing it, and it was all council officers doing it. It wasn't anything that councillors necessarily drew. There was, you can go back and check the minutes. I was at every cabinet meeting, unlike everybody else, and it was discussed at them, but there was no paperwork, and there was a workplace going on where the planning areas would be. Okay. And there was a discussion about the planning areas, and they came up with some paperwork where they named the areas, and that went to cabinet, and then there was some discussion about the stupid name that they'd given us, and I think Warren probably improved that, and then it came back with a line. So I don't think any councillor had anything to do with drawing that line.
All right, thank you.
I don't want to attack the councillors on this.
No, that's fine. Yeah, that's cool. Thank you, though. Right, on to planning applications. So our first one is a telecommunications antenna. Who would like to speak first? Paul. Yep.
I just wonder why they can't put the two sets of little aerial things on the one new mast.
I think Catherine answered that earlier, that the new 5G
yeah, but don't
is
forget
heavier.
that doesn't exist, the earlier meeting. No, we've got to be careful because that's predetermination if we start.
No, it's a question that you had earlier. That wasn't a predetermined.
Yeah. But I didn't get a proper answer. I regret to say that I still want to know why they couldn't put a good reason why they can't put the two on the one new mast.
Okay. All right. Martin.
Oh, I thought somebody else had their hand up before me, but
no,
I was just going to say with my previous work history in this area that I approve of this one going ahead. I think it's quite a nice location they've picked. It's out the way. It's sort of semi industrialized there, although there is backing on to residential areas. And the mast is separate because of the 5G frequencies, and 5G is going to need many more masts because it's a much lower power and higher throughput. So we just better be wary that we will get more applications in for these types of 5G masts.
Well, thank you for a technical answer.
But
brilliant.
It didn't. No, it wasn't.
No?
It didn't answer the question of why you can't put both on one tall pole.
Okay. As you can see from the detailed drawings of this one, the antennas are situated above it, and the pole is made in such a way that they're enclosed, where in the old days we would put a small lattice work one there with antennas or dishes, antennas looking like TV aerials bristling out the side. They've now made them a lot more streamlined and less ugly and for pigeons to sit on. And it doesn't allow for another pod like that to be put underneath where the 4G would be. And in other terms, you do need some separation between the two transmitting antennas and receiving antennas between the 5G and 4G. So although it's only a few meters, you need that practical separation between the two of them.
Okay.
Thank you again for a very technical answer.
Thank
Wonderful.
you. Thank you, Martin.
Thank you. John, yeah.
Well, I mean, thank you, Martin. And I appreciate this is your specialist subject, and obviously absolutely concur with what you're saying. What I'm wondering about is, given that several 5G masts have been burnt around the country by, dare I say, flat earthers who think that somehow these masts are caught up with infecting the population with a pandemic, are we running the risk that this could happen in various sites around Buckingham? Because there are some, there may well be people who will attempt to do that here as well. And I'm wondering, are the installers now thinking of extra security to prevent that from happening? Although I'm not sure how they would do it. Has that been looked into? Or are people just expecting that problem will go away? Because I'm not sure that it will at the moment.
Well, we've had no objections on the website, which doesn't mean that people don't know that it's an application that's gone in. I don't know. Is anything fireproof?
Yeah, and sorry, a supplementary question as well is, I thought when it came to things in telecommunications installations, we don't get to discuss it anyway. The big boxes that went out for the broadband connections, we just say fine. We don't have any power, and nor does the planning authority either. How come they actually have authority over this? Is it not simply part of that same package?
It normally is, isn't it?
They just get to do it.
Catherine, do you know why this one's come?
I did put in my briefing thing that I was quite surprised to get it.
Oh, I see. Okay.
I'm not arguing. If they want to, we might as well reply. But no, normally it says plainly ATN, which the previous one that was withdrawn didn't. But it came with a proper cover sheet with a proper date on it and everything. So I thought, fine.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay, so no objections. Is that general feel?
Lisa.
Tim.
I did put my hand up.
Sorry, didn't see you. My bad.
Just a quick word about John's comment. Yes, probably there may well be protests about it, but it's not a planning reason. All we can do is approve them at best, and otherwise give them a nod through. Extra security is entirely up to the network provider. And all right, we may not like it, but we're stuck with it. It's just not a planning reason.
No, correct.
I've got an objection to it, Tim. It's just I'm concerned about people setting fire to things.
Well, we all are, but you can. I'm not sure what the security measures would be, other than a webcam or some sort of camera relating to a security. But by the time they get there, it's too late because it's already a light. A bit like when people set light to speed cameras.
Yeah.
By the time they get there, it's too late.
Right, I was going to move this on with no objections, but now I've got two hands up. So let's go Robin and then Andy, and then we can move on.
Yeah, I need to comment to say that I'm going to wait and not comment on this and see what comes up in the officers' report at the planning committee, because it could be there's something more interested in the officers' report, and I've heard what everybody said, and as was stated, nobody knows about this yet, so it could be between now and this meeting there is a concern about it. So I'm not going to say anything on this and record as such that I'm abstaining from it.
Okay, so your comment is a no comment. You're not commenting, but you commented.
No, I commented that I will wait. No, let's be precise here, Liz, because it's quite important. I actually said I will not be commenting on this because it will go to the planning committee. What I then said, if you want to be correct, is that if there's any further detail.
Robin, calm down. I was joking. All right, don't need to get hurt up.
Not a joking matter. What I said was technically correct.
All right,
That's
I was only kidding. Don't, okay. Andy.
Thank you, Madam Chairman.
As a
Yes,
member of the
I
committee, I
don't,
probably could speak.
Sorry, Andy.
I don't think there have been any more incidents of these antennas being set on fire. There's only a slight glitch in the early, when coronavirus first came about, and I don't think that's happened since then. So I don't think there's a risk factor on this one.
No, I think that's fine. We're no objections to this one, aren't we?
Yeah.
Oh, hold on, John.
Sorry, just to correct what Andy's saying there, news from Derby, a 5G phone mast was set on fire on the 24th of May. So the problem's not gone away.
Thank you, John.
Thanks, John. Right, item 2. Sorry, somebody said. Oh, sorry, Mark.
I was just going to say, this is not a planning matter, so we need to agree with whether we want it or not and move on.
Yeah, we've said no objections.
Yeah, no, I was answering what John was just saying.
Oh gosh, okay, thank you.
Yeah, that, you know, whether someone wants to set fire to a mast or not is nothing to do with the planning conditions.
Correct. Yeah.
Planning issue.
Thank you. Okay, 19 Hilltop Avenue. Any comments on this one? No. Carolyn.
Well, not entirely. In fact, the front elevation, we think, well, it improves the look of it. But is parking an issue, taking away this potential extra space here for parking, or they haven't mentioned the parking, and 2 cars seem to be parked outside permanently all the time.
Yes, they're not increasing the number of bedrooms, so the parking provision doesn't have to be increased.
Okay, thanks.
They've got quite a big frontage anyway.
Yeah, they have. Right, so no objections on this. No objections. Yeah. Okay. Oh, Robin.
I was waiting for the next one after you could declare an interest in that one.
Hold on.
Number 3.
Oh yeah, you'll be a neighbour, won't you?
I'm a
Okay,
neighbour,
so
so
next.
I have to declare a prejudicial interest in that because
Thank
whatever.
you.
Anywhere.
Right, next item is 30 Hare Close. So Robin has declared an interest. He's a neighbour. Is that your interest? You're a neighbour, Robin?
Well, it's an interest period. I shouldn't be commenting on it because it's, you know, it could have a direct effect on me. I shouldn't be commenting on it. That's
Sure.
fact.
No worries. Thank you. Any hands up? Up, Martin?
Yeah, I quite like the idea of putting it to brick. I'm not too sure it's more environmentally friendly or if energy efficient, especially when you're getting rid of PVC that's already been made and is doing a perfectly good job at the moment, you know. But I understand why it's wider and deeper to facilitate the air gap walling. Whatever, I've forgotten the name of it now, but I'm in favour of it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
All right. Is there any? So we're getting no objections unless anybody's got an objection. No.
If
Andy?
Madam Chairman, if there are no objection from the neighbours, then let's go with it.
Yeah, there's not any. All right. So no objections to that. Thank you. Next item is Maple Cottage. Is there anybody who'd like to speak on Maple Cottage?
Yeah.
Oh, Carolyn, sorry.
Well, I'm surprised there hasn't been any neighbour objections. And I noticed Catherine's report saying that additional additions, and this is a larger addition than the existing conservatory, would not be allowed. This was back at the original approval stage. Whether those conditions still are extant, I don't know, but it is going to impinge on the neighbours. And I think if they have no objection, then the Buckingham Society doesn't object. But we just wanted to check that there were no concerns on neighbouring properties.
I mean, I think it'd be wise to raise the fact that there was a condition on this property, because there's similar conditions on Page Hill, isn't there, for not building? So you know, the fact that there's one on this property. But is there anybody that wants to say anything? Paul?
Yeah, we just, a couple of the trees along on the hedge are protected, aren't they?
They are.
And therefore we just sort of remind the developer and Aylesbury Vale that those should, whatever works are done. I mean, according to this, they're not going to touch them, but just as a reminder that those are covered, they are protected trees. And I think it's always worth doing. Shows we're on the ball anyway.
Yeah, thank you. All right, I'll take Mark and then I'll take Martin.
Yes, thank you. The Carolyn's raised a very interesting point about that condition 9. But that was 20 years ago, and historically I noticed that AVDC haven't really been enforcing these much after 10 or 15 years. So, but as you say, draw attention to it. But what I think we do need to do is note that the application last year was far, far bigger. We objected to it, and they have reduced the plans at the front of the house considerably, which I think they're to be congratulated on. And providing that condition 9 has been lapsed now, then I have no objection.
Thank you. Martin?
Yeah, the garden is south-facing and they're building a garden room there. I wonder if there may be a condition for the management of the 3 trees, because they could then come into play for the light aspect falling in the garden room that they're now building, and they may want them removed at some point in the future.
Catherine?
Only one of them is going to shade the garden room. The other 2 are in the front hedge.
Is that okay, Martin?
Well, okay, just for that one then.
Well, I think if we draw attention to...
Oh, that's what we said, yeah.
Yeah, what Paul said, we draw attention to that. But there's no planning reason to object, is there? So, and everybody has had something to say? Yeah, so no objections to that one. Okay, Royal Acton School is the next item. Anybody would like to speak on this? Put your hand up, please. No. 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 Robin?
Just to declare, I won't comment on this application. I'm also to declare that I'm a member of the Children's and Education Select Committee. And there's one other for that, but I should declare that when you're doing this application, so you know.
Thank you.
But I shan't comment on this application.
Thank you.
But they're an academy, aren't they?
Sorry?
They are an academy, which means they're not under local authority control, are they? So therefore, they don't overlap with county council issues.
I'll give you an hour on education one evening, Paul. I might explain to you about it.
Outside of the meeting.
Outside of the meeting.
I think the only thing that I picked up was in their logistics and traffic management plan. The photograph that they show of the road is a completely empty street. There's no cars parked, which isn't a normal day, because a normal school day there'll be cars lined up on both sides of that street. Right, so no objections.
Nope.
No. Thank you very much. Right. Next item is not for consultation, but even though it's not, does anybody have anything to say?
Nope.
Nope. No. Thank you very much. Right, planning decisions. Any comments? No. No.
Well, in fact, there's only one, and that's for a month's worth of...
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
50 to go.
Yeah. Item 10, the Shire Council Committee meetings, none have been held. Does anybody want to say anything on those? Anyway?
Just say that I think we've discussed the strategic committee things. I think it would be wise to, for the next meeting, get an understanding of the workings of the community board and what sort of size of applications we're expecting there, because you've got to work with two effective planning things. Smaller things, I believe, are going to be done there. So we've got to bear that in mind when you're allocating time or asking a member to call things in. So you've got two committees pretty much to do with, and then there will be a very large committee dealing with the overall strategic development of the county, which we haven't. I am not on it, but maybe we should ask Councillor White for an understanding of how that works, because we haven't got it on here. So we should add it to it, because say there was a massive road coming past us called the Expressway, I should imagine that would go to that committee, and Warren would be the cabinet member and would have a full understanding of it. And I wouldn't want to premise what he says. I think we need to just get an understanding of the flow through stuff with it. You know, it may not come to this. You know, I think it's sensible to enter into an adult conversation with them now.
Members happy with that idea?
Yes.
Yep. Good. Thank you, Robin. Okay. Right, well, we've covered both of those, 10.1 and 10.2. There's nothing to say. So enforcement, has anybody got any breaches? We've got John, we've got Robin, and we've got Mark. Oh, and Martin. So we go John, Robin, Mark, and then Martin.
Sorry, I'm on number 12. I was ahead of myself. I've got a point on 12.
Okay, so then Robin.
Just on enforcement for information purposes, I'm very impressed today. Contacted environmental health over an issue of enforcement in Candleford Court. Not only have they actioned it, they're going tomorrow to see whether there's a case for enforcement through legal process for dumping. So, you know, when somebody does something well, we should say when they've done something well. And
what is that? Sorry, what enforcement is that?
It's waste refuse dumping.
Oh.
In Candleford Court. I was contacted this morning, phoned them up, and within the afternoon, the officer phoned me back this afternoon to say he was meeting them tomorrow, and he believes there may possibly be grounds, depending on the evidence, to do a case on it. The other element about moving the stuff away, that's more complicated, and I'm waiting for an officer tomorrow.
Thank you very much for that, Robin. Right, Mark.
Yeah, you may all remember the case of 10 Hilltop Avenue, which is up on Page Hill. A fence was erected. An enforcement notice was served on the owner last October. The planning enforcement officer, Miles Millwood, apparently got in touch with the owner, said that they never received the refusal decision. I find this a bit strange because there was an enforcement notice on that fence for 5 months. How come she didn't see it on her own fence? It was there in plain sight. I know she was aware of it because one of her neighbours asked me what it was all about. So that notice was actually taken down after 5 months, which I reported to Catherine on March the 28th by email. Anyway, we don't need to ring tonight because enforcement, so they've come to an agreement with the owner, will now apply for a revised scheme for the fence, which would be of a more open design. The other problem is there's a shed. Panels have been put in there ready for erecting a shed, which is a lot higher than the 2-metre fence. So that is going to be a subject, obviously, of a planning application, which they expect to be submitted by the middle of July. So I will be having something to say about that then.
Thank you very much, Mark. Right, anybody got anything else on enforcement, Robin?
I think it would be wise for us now under the new authority. Remember, we had that historical conversation some 12 or 18 months ago, where Catherine generated a marvellous list of matters which hadn't actually been completed, matters of enforcement. Now, we had correspondence back to us in twofold. One, the conditions of being able to comment on them from members of the then District Council had changed, and also there was comments about, it was commented both in council at the district and other place about resource issues, being able to follow this up. And I think it's reasonable to start a conversation about what resources are going to be allocated to enforcement, because historically we had problems with it as a town council And I think it's important that we start the conversation to at least understand how enforcement's going to work, because we don't want to wait 6 months and then find that none of those historical things have been moved forward. I would imagine the cabinet member would know about all those problems. He was on the district council.
Okay.
And I think we should start a conversation to try and gain an understanding about enforcement. And if it becomes a problem, then we need to push it. But I don't think we should find fault on day one. But I think we need to find out how they're going to move the story forward, because there were so many cases outstanding, and it was a resource issue, lack of officers we had, and of course now we'll probably get the coronavirus as an answer. But
oh, definitely, yeah, it's affected everything, hasn't it?
Yeah.
Okay. Nobody else on that one, so we go on to number 12. Martin, did you want to say something on matters to report?
Oh, it's John.
No, not me.
Aha, John.
Yeah, I've discovered where the Nightingale Rise rogue sign is. I saw it today. It's on the corner of Red Chilli on Cornwall Place. It needs taking down because Nightingale Place does not exist anymore.
Good shout.
It's a yellow RAC or AA sign, I think.
Yeah, we can let our guys know about that.
Okay, cool.
Thank you very much. Carolyn?
I think Mark was before me.
Sorry, Mark's on the other screen. Mark?
No, after you, Carolyn.
Yeah.
I was just going to report that you may have or may not have seen the Section 106 agreement for Walnut Drive, 170 houses in Mays Morton, has been issued at draft stage for comments by the Parish Council, and you may be interested to go through it. But equally, repeated questions put to AVDC at the time as to where this Section 106 agreement was, and it transpired that it had been sent out of house in order to complete the legal agreement. It came back in-house after the Unitary Authority became the Unitary Authority, and they have completed the draft SO 106 in a matter of about 6 weeks, and it is now up for comment. So you may want to have a look at it, but we should be commenting on it at Mays Morton on Wednesday.
Thank you very much for that information. Much appreciated. Yeah. Right, Mark and then Robin.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chairman. I reported at the last meeting about a builder's sign on the Page Hill roundabout just to the south of it. Catherine reported it, and thank you, Catherine. It went before the weekend. Thank you.
Fabulous. Robin.
Just for information, an application which we historically supported was going to be refused by the new council. I called it in, and this week, end of last week, I had a letter back saying that they'd, due to the conditions that we gave, the client gave, and my call in, they effectively reversed it for approval. So that business, once this virus is over, will probably be opening on the industrial estate. So not everything's negative with these matters of calling. Yeah. They can have a positive influence.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you. Is there anybody else that's got anything to say? No. Okay. Right, I don't have any chairman's items. So date of next meeting, the 22nd of June. And thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night.
Oh,
before we close the meeting, Chairman, will Mark and Catherine work on that written question for me?
Yeah, sure.
Happy to.
Needs to go in fairly quickly to meet the Constitution, otherwise we'll miss the boat.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Yeah. Thank you. Right, thanks everybody so much for your time this evening.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks, Paul. Thanks,
Thank you,
Nina.
everyone.
Thanks, Louise. Thanks, Catherine.